We hope you learned a few things in our last video on creating visuals for virtual presentations. In this video, it's all about saying it like you mean it with your voice tone and your body language.
I know. I'm so excited. This is such a great part of our talk because Penny gets to really infuse this with so much of her knowledge and experience from working in TV journalism. Because really that television experience, like we're all television reporters now. We're sitting in little screens on people's laptops. And so we could use your advice, Pen.
We even wrote an article about it for CEO World and about how everyone should watch TV news and they can figure out how to be on their little screens here. Anyway, okay, so we're going to leverage voice, tone, and body language. This was a study that was done in the late 1970s on how messages are received, and it was done by a professor of psychology at UCLA. And what he determined is there are three elements: content, extraverbal or voice tone, nonverbal or body language, to how the message gets through to your audience. So he put it in terms of percentages of 100%. What's most important? What do you think the percentages were? Well, there you go. 7% for the message, 38% for your voice, and 55% for the rest of you. And so what does this mean? Well, everybody was very frightened by this and said, oh, does this mean we should just all speak gibberish or some other foreign language and it doesn't matter what we say as long as we wave our arms a lot and smile? Well, no, doesn't mean that. It means that content is really important. Content's the most important thing. Content is what we want to get across. And so in order to get it across, you have to have voice tone and body language that will in turn drive your content, or you're only going to get 7% of your message through. We start with content. That's why we spent so much time on content, Allison did, because you have to have content that you're comfortable with so that you can deliver the voice tone and body language. Okay, positive body language, of course, you want to sit or stand up straight. If you're sitting down like I am, you want to sit slightly forward in your chair and be, leaning ever so slightly forward. The anchors they kind of arch their backs on TV to make themselves look straighter because the camera makes you look slumped. That can give you a backache, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you really want to look straight, that's the way to do it. Do not sway back and forth. Now, like many of you, I have a chair that does this, and I have to remind myself not to do that because you can see it and it doesn't look good. If you jiggle your legs or feet, people think, well, you can't see that, but you can tell that someone's jiggling. So remember, the camera's always on. So if you're listening to a colleague, you have to be listening and not walking away to get a drink of water or, God forbid, some other things. You just want to make sure the camera, that the camera's always on. And next, you want to gesture in a comfortable way. So you probably have been watching Allison. She's gesturing just like she would in person. Very comfortable. You want to keep your hands up where you will use them on the table or desk, not under them. If you're in a shot like I am, you want to not be doing this. You don't want to be too expansive. It can be distracting, but just use your hands naturally, even if you can't see them. Like Allison's shot is wider because she's standing. And so you can see her hands more than you can mine, but mine, you can tell that I'm gesturing because it makes me look more natural. And on the next slide, the camera, as I mentioned, can drain energy. So if you can practice, videotape yourself when speaking or ask a trusted colleague to do a Zoom with you to view it too. When I first started in TV, I could not believe, because they don't teach you this in journalism school, how you have to raise your energy. Otherwise, you seem kind of tired and drained of energy. I thought I was fine. And recently I was coaching the president of an association for this big major speech that he has to give. And he thought he had a lot of energy, and he was very not energetic. But until you see yourself on camera, and then he did, because that's how we coach, you don't know. And so he was surprised when he saw himself on camera because it didn't feel like he had no energy, but it looked like it. So once he boosted his energy, it didn't feel right, but he could see that it was right. And then he just has to practice so it begins to feel right. After a while, it really does. Next slide, we have a quick note on appearance. Dress like you mean business. We've all seen We've all heard people who want to wear their pajamas, especially on the bottom. That's fine as long as you're absolutely sure they're not going to see. Allison, what was that guy recently? Didn't you show me something where
Oh,
somebody...
yeah. There was a reporter on ABC News. He was sitting on a stool in his living room, all buttoned up from the waist up, nice shirt and a jacket. But that shot took a bit of a wide shot, and we saw his bare legs.
I think he was wearing his underwear or maybe some really short...
Hopefully it was some shorts.
He was wearing something, but we saw way too much leg for sure. If you wear makeup in the office, do wear it on virtual. Even if you don't normally wear makeup, you might want to consider at least lipstick. It really makes a difference because otherwise we look washed out. Messy hairstyles are very much in style. They do not look good on camera, though, which is why you see the anchors on TV pretty much with their hair plastered down. And, I used to go through a can of hairspray at least every 2 days. It was awful. I'm sure my lungs are suffering. But anyway, you do want to get rid of those stray hairs and stuff. Smile. You want to smile naturally, not obviously if you're talking about doom and gloom or death and destruction, but you want to smile, and you want to, when you're listening, avoid what we call resting blank face, which is just if you're listening, corners of your mouth tend to turn down. We tend to do this. Want to look like we're animated, we're listening, raise your eyebrows slightly, turn up the corners of your mouth. But you got to practice in the mirror so you don't look goofy, right? So anyway, practice, experiment with it. Voices matter much more in virtual communication. So you have to really think about your voice more than you normally would. A lot of us talk too fast, or we talk too slow, or we talk too soft, or we talk too loud. That's the one I'm always being accused of. Anyway, you want to deliver with, as Allison was talking about earlier, strength, clarity, and warmth. So not only smiling and laughing when appropriate, but use what we like to call vocal variety, which is really about pitch, tone, and pausing. So if you're reading something, this is most important. If you've written something and you're reading something, you want to make sure that you're emulating how you normally talk. But when we talk in normal life, we pause for emphasis, or we slow down for emphasis. And then the rest of the time it's a different pace. So you want to sort of emulate that. This takes practice to think about, but of course, if you're just talking, just make sure you don't go on and on. Allow time, though, for people to process what you said. Pausing is a good thing before and after important points. Very important. Vocal mistakes to listen for. Oh, this is Allison's favorite. I'm going to let you demonstrate how to speak because you love it.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Penny. It's just that people have really important things to say, and it's very important that they say it like they mean it. And so when they talk, they really should emphasize their points so that we really believe them.
Yeah, it's like every sentence or thought is a question. We used to call it Valley Girl speak, and they said that women did it more than men, but in truth, we coach a lot of people, and we can tell you that men do it just as much as women, and if you're under 40, it's almost ubiquitous now, but you really have to stop and practice not doing it because it undermines your credibility so much. Even though so many people are doing it, it really does sound like you're questioning everything you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's something.
It makes you sound like you're uncertain about it. And if you really believe in what you're saying, you got to make it sound like you believe what you're saying.
Exactly. Thank you for demonstrating the better way to do it. So we don't want to be too quiet. We don't want to be a speed reader. A lot of people talk too fast, and a lot of people forget to breathe. And the problem with forgetting to breathe is that your voice goes down, down, down. And a lot of people who have been told that they speak in monotone, it's because they're not getting enough breath support. So if you've been told you speak in a monotone, you need to pause, breathe, get that breath support for your voice, because that's what powers your voice.
Yeah. And a lot of times what we hear when we're playing the video back for the people who we're working with is that all of a sudden they start to hear that they say and ah and basically and all of these filler sounds and phrases they had no idea that they used. And so really the first thing to do for a problem like that is recognize the problem.
Yeah.
And you have to, record yourself, as Penny was saying a moment ago, and you have to assess how often you use those types of phrases and why. And really, what we have found is that what people mostly do is they use ums and ahs and you knows when they probably should, as Penny just said, take a breath, take a pause. You don't have to fill all of the space. In fact, it's better not to, so that you can really let your important points sink in. And the only way to do that is to raise your level of preparation.
Raising your level of preparation is exactly what we'll talk about in our next video. So thanks for watching this one on positive voice tone and body language. Coming up, a deeper dive into perfect practice for virtual communications. See you then.